No further comment, then we will move on to item 9E for discussion. Resignations. Want to cover that?
We have received a letter of resignation from Judy Turk, who's our Student Services Administrator. Judy has accepted a position to be the Assistant Principal Special Ed Director for the K-8 school in Andover, which is closer to her home and fills her dream of being back into a school closer to children. So we're happy for her and sad for us. We received a resignation letter from Lorraine Wasson, who's the Special Education Secretary at the high school, and also from Sarah Sleeper and Judith Smith, both of whom are paraprofessionals.
Any discussion? Hearing none, we'll move on to 9F, which is nominations.
As we've done in the past, we need to nominate Lisa Greenbarber, who has previously been a consultant. We now need to convert her from a consultant to an employee. We already have a job description for speech language program specialist, so we would just nominate Lisa Greenbarber as an employee rather than a consultant. We would like to nominate Taylor Whipple to be the math teacher at the high school, replacing the position of John Argyropoulos, but with a different course load. I believe Taylor would be teaching geometry, not calculus. We have a current staff member that will be teaching calculus. Greg Dalzell is currently working as a paraprofessional in another district, is math certified, and we would like to hire him 20 hours a week to replace the math coach that we had, Karen Mitchell, who has accepted a position full-time in another school. This is funded through the Title VI grant, and this coach is someone who works with students prior to the NECAP exam, students who could use some extra tutoring. We would like to continue this beyond NECAP if we get an extension of Title VI. And he's aware that we would be nominating him for part-time, short-term, pending grant approval. I'd like to nominate Sue Rotundi to be the special education teacher in Bristol Elementary School. Cheryl Kimball had retired. Sue Rotundi had filled that role as a long-term substitute throughout the last school year and has done an excellent job in learning all the ropes of the case management. And then we'd like to nominate Elizabeth Babcock to be an English language learner teacher. It's a 3-day-a-week position, and it is really a program specialist position. So I apologize that that was typed as teacher. It should be English language learner specialist. It's not on the teacher matrix, and that is a .6 position to replace Joan Thompson, who left last year due to a health issue. And then, are there any questions on the teachers and program specialists at all? And then as far as support staff, we would like to nominate Christina Jordan to replace Michelle Grant as a one-to-one para. She is certified as para 2. And this is a position funded by Claremont for a student that is attending in our district, but whose parents live in Claremont. The high school would also like to nominate Carrie Hayes, who has currently been substituting for Lorraine Wasson during an absence this year and is trained in the special education secretary protocols and systems. That's a 5.5-hour position. We'd like to nominate her 6.5 hours, 1 hour a day. She would be working as a para, and we will be advertising and interviewing to replace her other 5.5 hours as a para. Rachel Spain is currently working 3 hours. We'd like to increase 2.5 hours to her contract through Title I funding to do some academic intervention work for the other 2.5 hours. We'd also like to move Lindsay Santa Maria from being a district-funded academic interventionist in a classroom to being a Title I academic interventionist, and then replace her classroom intervention work with Melissa Mackey. Judy Wilson was currently working in New Hampton. She was the victim of the RIF. We would be bringing her back to RIF and having her work at Bristol Elementary School to replace Sue Rotundi, who would move to the case management position of above. Jody Atchison was a math interventionist, and we would like to have her replace Anna Kilmer, whom you elected last year to be the grade 1 class size reduction teacher funded by Title II. And then we needed 2 paras one-to-ones at the middle school due to the resignation earlier in the summer of Judith Smith and Danielle Dusso, and that would be Angela Davis and Amy Bickford as our nominees.
Thank you. Just a comment on the resignations prior. Those individuals will all be invited to do exit interviews as well. I neglected to mention. Any further discussion on the nominations as presented by Superintendent Ross?
Did you wish for us to discuss the moving forward or not with hiring replacement? Or we don't really have that as an item.
No. What's your concern there?
Just so that people are aware that we will not be posting that, or
That we will not what?
post for an immediate replacement.
Then that would have to be an agenda item, right?
Oh, it's just like an FYI. It's not really, it's part of the resignation note or not. Just wondered what your pleasure was on that.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because this discussion, I wasn't at the last meeting, which was a P&D meeting, but I took part in a discussion at a recent meeting where the subject of replacing employees that leave the district was of great concern to me. We talked about which employees would we replace or not have to come to the board, and I was particularly concerned about certain support staff members not having to wait for a board meeting. Is that what you're discussing now? Okay.
Those
Thank you.
were, the board, I think at that time said one-to-ones we could replace the one-to-ones and
Right, custodians too,
Without waiting.
that one.
and custodians too, that's my concern,
Right.
and food service workers.
Right. We want to review the others.
But I was referring to the student services administrator position.
Well, the discussion on that is that depending on the outcome of the
Right.
decision of the special ed proposal, it seems unnecessary to propose a substitute or a permanent replacement at this point until we get the results of that reporting. That's basically the board's thinking there, assuming we do that.
I wouldn't use the word unnecessary as much as prudent
Yeah,
to
not prudent, just yet.
just take the time to really review the position and all the components of the position. And I know people are going to look immediately to say, I've already had people approach me to say, I'd like to be on the search committee, and they just assume a search committee. So I
Oh, I
just
see.
wanted
I
that
see.
to be
Okay.
discussed, that we would delay the search pending the audit findings and recommendations by, if you go with.
Right, I understand where you're coming from now. The discussion on that really focused around whether the board's going to proceed with the study proposed by Drummond Woodsum. And in anticipation of possibly doing that, at this point, it seems imprudent to go ahead and suggest that we're going to replace the special ed coordinator, student services, Judy Turk, at this point, because the recommendation may be to do something different, that's all.
And we do have the availability of consultants from Ceres, because I don't want Mimi to, totally panic.
You see the look on my face? What?
But I think that's important, as we discuss this, that we do have Judy is leaving things in very good shape as far as all of the IEPs ready to go for this year and all of the placements ready to go, and that we have designated some people who can pick up some pieces of the position in the interim, and we'll be working with some consultants to make sure that we are in legal compliance with everything. And then we will determine whether to move forward with an identical replacement or whether to reconfigure the position. So I think that's just a conversation I'm going to need to get out there, and I wanted the board to all agree that we were on the same.
Right, as a matter of record, that discussion has occurred. That is in fact the case. I was remiss for not elaborating it a little bit further.
I would just like to add one thing too. On the list of what she does, no one is identified to actually supervise staff, and doesn't she supervise the paraprofessionals?
Absolutely.
So I think that's probably a big thing.
She doesn't supervise the paraprofessionals. The case managers in each building supervise the paraprofessionals, as do actually the
Okay.
administrators with
And so
input from the case managers.
She supervises the case
contracted
managers?
services. Again, each building principal supervises the case managers
Okay.
in the respective buildings. The
Okay.
case managers and the administrators supervise the paras. Judy directly supervises the district-wide employees and the contracted consultants, such as the speech language, et cetera. And we do have, as I said, we have access to some consultant advice to say what should we do with that supervision piece in the interim.
Okay.
And each of them work for some principals, and the principals also help to supervise. So it's kind of a co-supervisory model.
I was just going to say, she's also in charge of, takes care of the out-of-district placements.
Right, and along those lines, I was kind of asked, could you elaborate on what your plan would be in the interim?
Right.
to deal
I have a
with
short
court?
term. Right now, I have been attending the court hearings for students who are placed up at Mount Prospect, and our assistant principals actually, and some of our guidance people have been attending court hearings and some of the out-of-district meetings, which we will, again, continue to do. There are some out-of-district meetings that, again, I found this out Wednesday, so I have yet to speak to the consultant to say what you advise and how should we proceed with that. So we definitely will need to come up with a comprehensive plan in the interim. But we just didn't want to rush into hiring at this late point in the season. There's not time to do a really adequate search, and we want to make sure we do that carefully when we do it.
Right, and in the interim, I presume that you will perform whatever due diligence is necessary to keep us compliant with law.
Oh, absolutely.
So, kind of goes without saying.
I've already got my calls into the State Department of Education special ed person, as well as the New Hampshire School Administrators Association special ed advisor. They know we're short-staffed, and they're willing to help us out with whatever we need. Could I ask somebody to open the window again?
We would love to, but Paul's going to have to do it because I can't reach. Can you open the window?
Yeah. Any further discussion under
Maybe put that
9F?
fan on again.
I'll wait till he sits so I
I'll
don't
turn
hit
it
him. Oh, okay.
Thank you.
Are you comfortable with where we're at on this?
Yes, you just hadn't said that, and I wanted to make sure that we were able to go public with the plan.
Okay.
That's nice.
Okay, under item 9G, fencing for playgrounds in elementary schools. This was an item that Dawn wanted to talk about, so we have put it on the agenda.
In a visit to the Danbury Elementary School, I went out on recess with the children, and a few of them went back into the woods, even though there were teacher supervision on the playground. Recently, there's been an arrest in Bristol of an individual that, based on the newspaper, it sounded like he was going to kidnap a child, although it wasn't really clear. I'd like the board to consider, I've also have visited the Hebron Bridgewater Elementary School, and I drive by the New Hampton Community School, and both of those have playgrounds that are also abutted by woods. And I think we're taking a risk of not having adequate fencing to ensure the children are kept out of the woods and protected by any potential individual trying to access them going through the woods.
Have you outlined a proposal of what you'd like to see done?
I haven't outlined a proposal because I don't know the cost. I guess I'd be requesting the board to support a study of what it would cost to fence those playgrounds.
Something perhaps facilities would do?
Yes.
Have you had any discussion with anyone?
I've talked to both Marie and Dan, and they said that they would need the direction from the board to
Okay.
proceed.
So I guess it's up to the board then to continue with the discussion to determine what we'd like to do. Sue?
Well, I would just suggest that if you did put fencing up, that you also fence in part of the woods. Keep that with the school, with the open piece, because one of the great things about that is that the children get some exposure to the natural habitat. So if you were to fence and you set that fence back into the woods a ways, so nobody could get through that without jumping over it or something and being obvious.
They're not
that
supposed
you
to
could still
go
see the
in
children.
the woods in Danbury.
Not at
That's-
all.
That's against the rules.
Yeah,
Yeah,
but they
so,
do.
but
so.
they
yeah.
weren't being supervised. They've never supposed to. Never.
Yeah.
Even when I was there, you were not allowed to go in the woods.
Mm.
So the fact that he saw people go in the woods meant they weren't being watched. And I
Mm.
double checked with my kids after Don brought that up and said, "Are you guys supposed to be in the woods?" They said, "No, you get in trouble if you go in the woods." And then the next weekend, I was at New Hampton for a ball game, and not only do they have woods, but they also have a road and woods, just a small amount, between them and a road. So it's they did just have someone attempting to get kids into the vehicle down here at the tennis courts 2 weeks ago. So I understand his concern. So why can't we just authorize soliciting quotes from 3 sources to fence the schools?
Well, to certainly take a closer look at it and determine what it is we want to fence in and then ask for a quote.
Yeah.
But I think that sort of work would have to be done probably with some guidance from a board member or two, so whomever might want to participate in that, along with Dawn, to offer some guidance to the facilities committee.
Would the fencing that you went through for the football field, would any information from that be helpful?
I can't imagine that the fencing that went up for the football field is what you're looking for.
No, not what went up, but
No.
But
You're going to
did-
need, and I know you're looking at him because he's involved with the football field, but I'm going to, my 2 cents on this is that if you want to refer it to your facilities committee, and the facilities committee, and you could certainly join the facilities committee for these meetings, could go out and make a determination of what area you're looking to fence. I'd have no problem, once an area is determined, doing the work required to develop a cost proposal so that you guys can budget for it. You're looking at a major expense here.
Right.
So, the step 1 is determine the area you want to fence. Step 2 would then be up to me, in my opinion, to establish property lines if they conflict with your proposal, because I know for a fact that when we wanted to take down a tree for safety's sake at Danbury last year, and the tree was on another property. So we had to go through an extensive process, including getting the out-of-state owner of that property to agree to let us do work on their tree so that the limbs wouldn't come down on students in the Danbury yard. So it's once again, I'm happy to meet with the facilities committee as a part of it. Let's determine the area you're talking about, then leave it to me to do the necessary groundwork to advise the committee, who can report back to you on what it will take to do that.
And I would agree with Sue that we had a grant last year, for the last 2 years, in partnership with Plymouth State University in science to use the natural habitat in the woods for some exploration and some science. So maybe, as Sue said, not if you could have a safe margin of a couple
I don't
feet.
think we own the woods.
Well, again, that's part of what Dan would have to look
Yeah.
into.
Yeah.
But I know that we did a lot of work and did some lessons with habitat and things like that. So I just want to keep that part of the conversation in the mix until we determine. And I know I have been in Danbury where the kids have been allowed to, they were designing fairy houses and gnome houses and things. And sometimes for certain plant and animal studies, sometimes they are supervised and allowed to use pieces of the woods as a station. So I think those are big conversations to have, but I don't want to totally rule out using some of it.
And you could put a lock gate in there that they could unlock to be able to access the woods.
Something like that.
Well, if they're supervised, they could walk around the fence to get to the woods too. You know, you don't want to fence the whole playground because then in an emergency they can't
Right,
get out.
right. One of the things this presents us with is an opportunity relative to one of our goals, which is to communicate with the public on matters of importance. And I would like to suggest, Dawn, that when you create your motion, which is this form that you'll need this evening in order to draft it, that you probably include the PTOs to incorporate the views of the respective PTOs in each of the elementary schools and see how they feel about fencing in the kids and fencing out the criminals and people that shouldn't have access to our children.
And in the meantime, I will reinforce with all the administrators to reinforce with all the playground supervisors to be extra vigilant in light of it's a conversation we have every year, but we will definitely renew the vigor of this conversation this year in light of the recent happenings.
Right. Further discussion on item 9G? Hearing none, we'll move on to 9H, which is policy for first reading. IGD, co-curricular programs, JO, student records, JO-R, access to and use of student records, which are in your packets.
And I'm going to apologize because JO and JO-R are not in there. And I couldn't, for the life of me, Ruby, find any of the edits we made to those. And I know that Paul was taking some of the minutes and
Let me see if I have.
so I think we're going to have to delay JO and JOR till we can, because they're not in your packet because I couldn't find any record of the changes, but I know Paul was taking some minutes and he may have left, or you may have them.
I have co-curricular.
We have IGD, we just don't have JO or JOR in your packets tonight, is my point.
Okay.
And JO and JOR are about the FERPA, correct? Sorry.
And one of the main considerations was, did our FERPA policy include the phrase, as Jerry Zellen suggested it should, that consultants would be given access to records, and our policies currently do include those phrases.
I'm not sure we changed them.
We did not, but Don suggested some changes as far as, I know you talked about asking me to develop a procedure to communicate annually to the parents which are the records, where one can view them, and for how long they could view them.
Right.
But you also said add the nurse and guidance counselors as party whose notes and records may be exempted. I think that went on the list, and I don't think we actually changed the policies per se. But it says you reworded some language, and I couldn't find that. So do you have a record of the language that you suggested to reword?
Well, it was the nurses and guidance board.
And there was something about the military recruiters that military should be
yeah.
crossed out,
Right.
be recruited.
Right, so if you,
Said it-
Without reference to the
Yeah.
policies this evening, they're going to have to be deleted from the agenda.
Yes.
right, that's what I'm
Right.
saying, just
Right.
JO and JOR, but we have
They
IGD.
were voted on, because the vote was 3000.
Right,
To
right.
go to the first reading. Yeah.
Well, they do need to be included in the packet for review by the board.
Right, so we will do that, JO and JOR next time, but IGD is in the packet, as are GE and GBCD.
Okay, so for that reason, I'd like to propose that 9H, including IGD, be put on the consent agenda. Moving on to 9I, hearing no additional discussion. There are policies for second reading. Pete, did you have a question?
Opportunity to speak on IGD, or that would be later in public comment.
Do you have a point on the policy under discussion?
I don't have it right with me, but
We
I-
included the language that you
Right.
requested.
my, and this may not be the right place, but my only question would be, when an eighth grader comes to high school, it's a total new change for them. And middle school, they have their own dynamic down there, and when they come to high school, they pretty much get a clean slate, discipline-wise and whatnot. And I'd like at some point possible discussion on whether that should also hold true academically. If a student has academic deficiencies at the middle school, then comes up to the high school, they're not really starting with a complete clean slate when they come up here if they're being held back. I'm not sure if that's in that one or not.
So it sounds like then you want to take this up with the policy committee,
Okay.
right?
I don't think, it doesn't say anything at all about, it says they must be academically eligible, and there's nothing, and it says academic eligibility will be determined by the grades earned in the quarter immediately preceding the activity. So I'm hearing you say that you want to say students entering the high school.
I'd like to have that looked at. Yes, if students entering high school would start with a clean slate, not be held back.
So right now, it says grades 6 through 12.
Correct.
Yeah.
And I'm looking at 8, stop, and then everything else, they start new, it's a new building, they have a new philosophy. There's many students who have difficulty at middle school, but now they have a new beginning, and to have a new beginning, then maybe be held back because of something at a lower grade, just to look at. And I'd be glad to go to the policy committee on that.
Sounds like we should table this then,
Yeah, I think so.
okay? Then I'll rescind my suggestion that it go on the consent agenda in anticipation of a move to table.
And our next policy committee meeting is September 8th at 5:30.
September 8th, that's a Saturday.
That's a Saturday.
18th, maybe?
6, September 6th,
At 5:30? It's a Thursday, right?
yes. That's what
I
it
just
says in the
wrote it
minutes.
down. Yeah.
Okay, thank you
5:30
for
on the
that
6th.
input, Pete.
And that, excuse me, that meeting would be,
SAU.
I see.
That's why we publish this stuff, so people can look at it, who obviously found something of concern. We're now discussing 9I, which is policies for second reading, which is GE, exit interviews, and CBGB, which is staff conduct and appearance. Any discussion on that? Those will be for second reading. We can probably put that on the consent agenda, only in anticipation of moving on to 9J, which is the job description for choral accompanist. Which we would want to discuss at this point.
Choral accompanist is again one of those things that it has heretofore been a contracted service, and with the IRS saying, ruling saying we have to hire people, we need to first approve the job description, and then we will come to you later. Basically, we have one individual at the high school that does most of the accompanying, and I don't know if the middle school uses one or two, depending on concerts. So it's a very, how many hours a week, Dan?
I don't know that number off the top of my head.
It's a couple hours a week. She doesn't come every day, so I don't even know if you need us to come with a nomination, but we just need to make a job description so that we can then hire the person as a part-time accompanist.
So there is no description here, but we.
Yes, it's
You
in
do,
the
it's in
yellow.
your- it's on the back of your last-
policy.
Oh, okay.
The
Because
back
the
of your last
policy
policy.
committee did it.
That's it. Flip over
Yeah,
one more.
right.
Yep.
Yeah, okay.
So we're just, the policy committee approved it, so we're asking the board to approve it.
All right, so I'm going to suggest that go on the consent agenda as well. Which brings us to other business. Does any board member have other business under 9Z?
Well, first, is that where I would discuss these changes to the handbooks, or will that be later? Or do we discuss them? I've already read them.
The handbook for the, under 9A, athletic, elementary support, and substitute.
Yeah, Marie's two additions to the support
Oh, yeah, no,
staff.
I think the motion could include the
Okay,
changes.
all right.
Vinnie, I did pass out
And then-
tonight a field trip request, if you could add that.
Yeah, so we're going to, I was just looking to see if this were under action items at all. Apparently not. So this came in later, right? So we'll take it up as other business.
Yes.
All right. We have a field trip request for the junior English class for a trip to Salem, Mass.
We do this every year, and again, we have to come to the board if we go out of state or overnight.
Right. So there will be other business under 9Z, which is a field trip.
Would you want that consent or not?
I'm just wondering, is there any discussion on this in any detail?
I'm a big fan of field trips, especially when you take the whole class.
Hmm.
I think it's a good experience.
Zero cost to each student. One day trip, leave at 7, return around 5. No further discussion. I'm going to suggest that go on the consent agenda as well. And that now brings us to public comment. Finally, seemed like it took us a long time to get here. Is there any public comment on the agenda items only that were discussed under item 10? Yes, Sharon.
Aye.
Question on 9I.
I think you already made mention that exit interviews are optional. People are invited, but not required.
That is correct.
Okay. Staff conduct and appearance. Is that a big book? What is that?
It's not a book. It's in each handbook, and our concern about
Thank
that.
you. All right,
Yeah.
thanks.
We actually were approached by union leadership, and they asked us to tighten up our guidelines for staff appearance, because they said that when they needed to have discussions with people about inappropriate attire, our policy was too vague for them to enforce anything. So we looked at all of that. We looked at appearance, behavior, language.
All right.
Anything else, Sharon?
I'm going to read this.
Anything in italics is proposed changes. What is there was original.
Okay. No other public comment? Moving on to item 11, the consent agenda. Are there any changes to the consent agenda as agreed to prior? That includes item 9I, policies for second reading, items 9J, choral accompanist, and item 9Z, the field trip. Hearing none, I would like to suggest a motion to move the consent agenda as presented. So moved. Paul Reinhardt moves, and it is seconded by
Sue?
Sue Cheney. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye, opposed, no. Vote is 6-0-0 with one excused absence. And that is Bristol. Okay, we're gonna move on now to action items. Item 12A.
Can I suggest that we combine, oh, wait a minute, all right, not combine, can I suggest that we add the substitute handbook to this list? Because that was also reviewed by the policy committee at the same time.
If you would like to do that. Can you articulate a motion to approve what it is you want to approve?
Yes. To approve handbooks as listed, athletic, elementary, support staff.
Go slow for Leah, please.
Okay. I'm going to hand this to her also, but athletic, elementary, support staff, and substitute handbooks. And then we have 2 proposed amendments to go into the support staff and program specialist handbooks.
And can you hand those to her?
Yes, and I've already read those, but I will pass those down.
Okay, can we pass this down to Leah? Thank you.
So this is cross-reference number 12A. It's not on the consent agenda, and the maker of the motion would be Ruby Hill.
Correct.
So I'm just completing the form of
Make a
that.
move that the motion that we accept as amended.
Well, I can't second, sorry.
I'll second.
Okay,
Well,
Okay,
didn't Ruby make the motion?
I did. So I
Yeah,
can't,
she-
so
she
then
moved-
Paul,
She moved to amend. Paul moved to second.
The second,
Seconded the amendment.
okay.
So technically, we should vote on that. So all in favor of amending the motion to approve the athletic elementary support staff and substitute handbook as proposed and presented to the clerk, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is 6-0-0, one excused absence, that being Bristol. Now on to the main motion. The motion is to approve the athletic elementary support staff and substitute handbook as amended. The amendment having been provided to the clerk, is there further discussion? This motion has been made by Ruby, the chair of the policy committee. Is there a second? Motion seconded by Paul. Further discussion? Hearing none, I would ask for all those in favor to say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. The vote is 6-0-0 with one absent, that being Bristol. Steve's absent. Okay, we'll move on to item 12B, which is consideration of multiple candidates for replacement personnel. This suggestion was made by Lloyd Belbin from Bristol, was reviewed by the policy committee, and the committee has recommended against adopting the suggestion. So, given that the recommendation was to not accept it, I guess we'll just leave that item unattended. Is there any objection to unattending to the item? Is there anyone who'd like to make a motion to defeat the motion or the idea? Okay, we'll leave it unattended.
we don't need to defeat it, do we?
Well, he's not here to propose it, but he asked the policy committee to propose it. You have not recommended anything, so it's really an unattended item.
Okay.
But the policy committee did recommend not to recommend it. So is that really unattended?
Correct, but he's not here to move the action. No one
Okay.
else wants to, so it makes it unattended. Item 12C, which, by the way, leaves him the possibility of bringing it up again. Item 12C, Review of the approval request by the Football Field Oversight Committee to declare Morrison Field ready for use. That motion reads as follows. You have a copy of it, right? To declare, moved by Peter Cochran. Paul, I guess we should probably ask you to make the motion. To declare that the field constructed by Friends of Newfound Football has been properly prepared to be used as a football field, henceforth to be known as Morrison Field. We accept this donation so that the Newfound Regional High School football team may use this facility.
I made that motion.
Okay. So moved by Paul on behalf of Peter Cochran and seconded by me on behalf of Peter Cochran and the Football Field Oversight Committee. Is there further discussion? Hearing none, I would ask that we vote. All those in favor of the motion declaring the football field ready for use, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Those opposed? No abstentions. The vote is 6-0-0 with one absence in the excused state, which is Bristol.
Excuse me, Vinnie, who moved it and who seconded it?
Paul moved the motion on behalf of the Football Field
Okay, thank
Oversight
you.
Committee, and I seconded it.
Thank you. I was just helping her code the cross-reference number and I distracted our clerk. I apologize.
Right. In addition, under 12C, number 2, there is a request to approve a request for an exception to school board policy ECA and permit a non-district employee to have a key and access to Newfound Regional High School property. This would facilitate Friends of Newfound Football in their maintenance responsibilities on Morrison Field when the school facility is otherwise closed.
So moved.
Moved by Paul and seconded by me.
And yet I would like to clarify that actually.
Is there discussion?
Yes. I would like it to say a key to what specifically, because property is just so general, and it's really a key to the gate, right?
Yes.
So I would like it to say that.
The main gate at the high school.
Picky. I'm down.
Key to the
I mean-
access gate, Stan, is that?
Gates on Newfound Road.
Yeah.
Okay,
I have to ask Paul to accept your friendly amendment.
yeah.
Paul, do you accept my friendly amendment? I'm afraid that the public will say, you gave them keys to the property, you know, if they,
Right, and,
yeah.
well, point well taken. The motion now reads, Leah, to approve a request for an exception to school board policy ECA and permit a non-district employee to have a key to access gates and access to Newfound Regional High School property. This would facilitate Friends of Newfound Football and their maintenance on Morrison Field when the school facility is otherwise closed. You
So
accept
moved.
the friendly amendment. I accept this as seconded. It is therefore amended accordingly. Any further discussion? Again, this is to facilitate their maintenance responsibilities at hours when the gates are locked. All those in favor say aye.
Right.
Opposed, no. The ayes have it, 6-0-0. One absence, excused, Bristol. That would be 12C1, and this is 12C2. Got it, Marie?
Vinnie, who moved in second?
Paul moved and I seconded it
Both? For both of those?
for item 9C2 and for item 9C1. Okay. C2 is not on the agenda, but we added it, and that's why you don't see it. Okay, item 12, I said 9, I mean 12, okay. Item 12D, Special Education Review and Analysis Proposal from Drummond Woodson. Is there a motion on the floor? Keep in mind that depending on what happens here, we may have to do a separate motion to identify 6 additional comparable towns.
Well, can I move that we undertake this study, or that we authorize this study using the 6 schools identified in our earlier discussion?
Yes, you can. That would suffice.
Second.
So there's a motion before the floor that says that we undertake the study as proposed in the memo of July 26th, 2012, by Drummond Woodson, and adding and selecting, I should say, the following 6 towns, Leah: Interlakes Cooperative, Messinic Regional, White Mountain Regional, Hillsborough Deering Cooperative District, Farmington, and Winnisquam Regional, to be included as part of the proposal for comparison as cohort districts. Further discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor of the motion as specified to go forward with the proposal, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Aye. Those opposed, no. The vote is 6-0-0 with 1 excused absence, that being Bristol.
Excuse me, Betty?
Yes.
May I make a suggestion? It's not really up to me to make a motion, but I would like to make the suggestion that the District Data Comparison Task Force use the same school districts that have been identified in this process to continue their future. It's just a suggestion. That committee can talk about it later. But I just like to suggest it so we are comparing apples to apples comprehensively with everything.
Sure, that's a good idea to bring forward to District Data Task Force, and I believe its chair, Don Franklin, has heard the request.
Thank you.
Item 12E, resignations. Is there a motion?
Sure, so moved.
Seconded.
There's a motion to accept the resignations as specified. Any discussion? Hearing none. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, no. The vote is 6-0-0, 1 absence, excused absence, that's being pushed.
Who seconded that?
Thought Paul did.
I thought Paul did, right?
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
Moved by
Like a
Ruby,
team,
seconded
yeah.
by Paul. Okay, continuing on to item 12F under nominations. We have nominations as proposed by Superintendent Ross.
I'll make a motion, we accept the nomination proposed by Dr. Ross.
I second.
Okay, the motions in the document prepared by Dr. Ross under 12F is moved by Paul Reinhardt for approval and seconded by Ruby. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. No abstentions. 1 excused absence being Bristol. We're now at item 12G, which is awaiting a motion from Dawn.
I make the motion that the board authorizes the facilities committee to explore the possibility of fencing the elementary school playgrounds. The facilities committee is encouraged to get community input, such as PTO, on the need for such fencing.
So moved.
Well, if Don's moving it, then are you seconding it? Well, you
I'm
said so
making the
moved, right?
motion.
Yeah, I assumed that Paul meant he was seconding it. Could I have that? Thank you. Okay, just to clarify, the motion reads as follows regarding fencing under 12G, cross-reference to 9. Board authorizes the Facilities Committee to explore the possibility of fencing the elementary school playgrounds. The Facilities Committee is encouraged to get community input, such as parent-teacher organization, on the need for such fencing. Further discussion? Hearing none. The motion moved by Dawn, and seconded by Paul, is now up for a vote. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye. Those opposed, no. Any abstentions? Okay, vote is 6-0-0, with one absent, that being an excused absence from Bristol. Let me give you this, Leah. Now, if I'm not mistaken, we have sent policies for first reading back to committee, right? We are about to.
We are lacking 2, and the other one we have sent back to committee.
Right,
So-
so the formal motion should be to refer policy IGC back to committee.
IGD.
IGD.
IGD, what did I say?
Okay. So I move that committee reconsider that.
Second.
Okay, moved by Ruby, seconded by Paul. Policy ICGD referred back to committee.
You just said ICGD.
IGD, sorry.
I think we have one with those letters, so.
Yeah,
Probably do.
you probably do, right? We'll review. Yeah. Okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Those opposed, no. Vote is 6-0-0, no abstentions, one absent, Bristol. Okay, now on page 7, at item Z, 12Z, because policies for second reading and choral was handled under the consent agenda. Consent. Item 12Z, other business.
That was one of the consent as well.
That was, field trip was done under consent as well.
Oh, that was the field trip, right, I'm sorry. The other business was the field trip, and that was approved on the consent agenda. Okay, that, ladies and gentlemen, brings us to item 13, manifests. Would anyone like to comment on manifests at this point, by chance?
Yes, I did go in today, and I did sign most of July, but there are no other signatures on it. We need 2 signatures in order for the board to approve the manifest. So, should we do something different? Should we bring them to the board meetings? I've always been against that because I didn't feel that I could concentrate on the meeting and also sign manifests. So I would still go into the SAU office to sign, but I'm just looking for some kinds of suggestions as to how we can keep up.
Well, I think this is an issue we should hear from Dan Rosner on.
The annual draft report isn't final yet, but I want to tell you about something that came up in the draft report, and
The draft report of the audit.
the draft report of the audit. Thank you. And I'm going to try and pull it up so I can quote exactly, because I think it's important, and it's going to be something for you to consider as the board moving forward. One of the comments that requires a management response that will be coming forth is on the schedule of findings. And finding 1203 is as follows. The title of the finding is Board Approval of Disbursements. Condition, it was noted that manifests are not approved by the school board until after checks have been issued, often many weeks later. Criteria, RSA 197:23 states that, states that the treasurer, quote, shall pay out the same only upon orders of the school board or upon orders of the 2 or more members of the school board empowered by the school board as a whole to authorize payments. So what the auditor is pointing out is that per the RSA, the school board has to approve payments before they're issued, not after. Management is charged with responding to that finding. I will give you my 2 cents even though you haven't asked for it. That is a wholly untenable and unmanageable situation from a practical business perspective. Unless
It would be
2
my-
of you want to come in every Monday
No kidding.
or Tuesday,
Yeah.
and no later than Tuesday, and review payables or review payroll and sign off on it.
Well, that's,
Can we save the audit expense next year as well?
But when you think about it, Dan, is what good does it do to look at them after the checks are cut?
I hear what you're saying. But at some point, if you want to run a business, which is what our office does, I know it's a school, but we're a business office. And if you want to go to that, that's okay. But it's going to require much more of an effort on your part as a school board. And I think it's going to become an extraordinary efficiency burden on the business office. You know, there's no penalty that I'm aware of for you continuing to operate as you have in violation of that RSA. It's a finding.
I feel that we've authorized a budget. We've empowered you in this position to do certain things, empowered Marie, empowered Leah. And us looking at it afterwards means that, even though I haven't done it, but it means that we are aware of trends and, you know, which things we have to sign more frequently, and then consider that in the next budget round. But
And the only correction I would make to what you said is that the district authorized a budget, not the school board. But,
Right.
but you're the stewards of it.
Yes.
And we all report to you, so
Well, we
certainly
proposed a
there-
budget that they.
yeah. I mean, to me, it's an unmanageable situation to try and comply with that RSA in the size of business office we have. Our business office has me, Leah, and a part-time employee. That's it.
I'm curious about what other districts do to comply with the RSA, which we're clearly in violation of, and I always wondered about since I first got involved in things. How was it that those who were stewards of with the fiduciary responsibility asked to approve stuff after the fact? How that made sense. So I can see now why it doesn't, according to state law. However, that said, I don't know how the rest of you feel, but the job as chair is a job, and it takes 4 hours a day to do this job, 7 days a week. That's what it's averaging for me. That said, that RSA makes school board service in general a job that implies that there should be compensation associated with it.
Well, there is $500 a year.
Yeah, well, I'm talking about less than 11
It
cents.
comes out to about 3.5 cents an hour.
I think we should just make an extra office for Dawn and Paul to
No.
move in once a week. They come
I'm not
in,
giving it
spend
that
all
easy.
day there.
Here's
Can
a-
I
here's-
suggest I do a survey?
Well, here's a further thought.
I-
Along the lines of what else is done elsewhere, and whatever else is done and elsewhere. It's clear to me that unless we get some extraordinary input from your colleagues, other districts, we have to make an effort to change state law. And it's just a matter of us officially notifying our state representatives that this is an untenable position. That's my opinion. Did you have something to add?
Just your comment about compensation, that was gonna be mine, that you could pay whoever goes in to review the manifest.
That's a lot of work.
Yeah.
And
It's very
It's a new
informative.
position.
I
Yeah,
don't,
it is,
I
but
don't
it
think we
takes
should be paid
hours.
for that. I don't think we should be paid for that. We're public
Well,
servants.
I'm just kind of speaking out of
It's
school
not in the
here,
budget.
pun intended.
Yeah.
But the point is that to do that, as Dan says, it's untenable.
Then I'm not gonna worry about getting in there every Monday to sign off on it.
But I think that in light of the fact that there's been a formal finding for which we've paid this organization to come up with this, and identify the fact that we're breaking the law, and have been for years and years apparently, it behooves us to notify our state legislator that we have to change this law. It's just impractical. I'm not afraid to do that. I don't know about the rest of you, but I'd like to see what you come up with from other districts, Dan.
Yeah. I just question why this was never a finding in all the years.
That's what I
In
said.
all the years
Right.
past, why is this all of a sudden?
Right.
But you did
No.
say it was a very thorough audit this
And is it
time.
only in this district or other districts they've audited? Have
They told
found
me,
this?
I asked that question of Timothy Graham, and he said, oh yeah, he said other districts do it, and like, really? And he was an
They
auditor, he was an auditor with Plodzik and Sanderson the first few years that I was here, and before Dan came and put out to bid for auditors, and I said, why was this not a finding in the past? Why is
Yeah.
this being brought up at this point? So,
What did they mean, other districts do it?
sign the manifest.
They signed them
and-
before?
But he didn't tell me.
And of course, some districts have full-time school board members who do get a yearly salary, which is significantly more. I don't know what districts those are.
Well,
but
then I apologize,
not the
Don.
most.
I just think there should be no incentive for us to, no financial incentive for us to,
Well, I'm just talking
I
about the
think
amount of
it's-
time that's
yeah,
required to do
yeah.
that.
But really,
I
puts a
have a question
hardship.
for Mimi, because she, prior board experience, how was it handled elsewhere?
It was a long time ago, I was on the board, but we signed them at the,
After the fact.
Meeting.
at the
we
board
signed them
meeting.
at the school board meetings.
Oh, at the board meeting, to authorize payment in advance.
That's what we used to do
So,
here
every month, that's still not practical.
before, right.
It's certainly not, because there is a manifest, for example, for payroll, which is every other week.
That would be
Right.
my concern.
And we do process payables on the alternate weeks. So is it conceivable that we could go to processing payables once a month? Yes. But you can't go off your payroll schedule, so.
That would solve the towns behind in average daily membership responsibility payments, wouldn't it?
In
We
my-
I
can't-
can't imagine why it would, to be honest with you.
In my audit of Hebron, that was one of my initial findings, that they weren't signing the manifest properly.
You mean in sequence, chronological sequence?
No, just that they weren't signing them.
The selectmen, you mean?
Yeah.
But a lot of selectmen meet weekly, so
Right.
it's a
Right.
different story. In Alexandria, they sign everything before the paychecks go out. But
And, you know,
it's different.
they were signing the manifest before the checks were actually issued. They just weren't reviewing the manifest.
It takes
So,
a lot of time to review all those bills, payables, whatever you want to call
Well,
it.
and certainly to do it properly, yes. It
And
is
when we-
an education, there's no doubt there.
When we approve the hiring of staff, we do approve that they be paid. We approve them at a particular salary. So to me, that's a pre-approval of them getting paid. But
There's other hourly people in there that I found errors in their timesheets.
I think that we should hear from you, Dan, on what some other districts do. If you can add that to your to-do list.
we have a hard enough time going in, getting them done, within 2 or 3 months.
How
I
long
don't think
does
that
it take
people
to
are gonna
sign
wait
them?
that long.
how long does it take to sign them?
You should,
Well,
well, I
maybe,
reserve a
or-
couple of hours for a month,
it's a
but if
couple
you're
hours.
new to the board,
Once a month.
it takes a lot longer. And
Depends on the level of detail. you
and
want.
the level of
Right.
detail. It can take a whole lot longer.
I think I spent 4 hours.
I mean, if you just want to go in and take the detail like that, and sign it, you'd be in and out here in 10 minutes.
Okay.
All right, in the meantime, we understand that we need second signatures for now in July.
For July.
Continue to break the law. So we'll say there are no current fiscal year manifests to approve.
That would be true.
Well, no, July is this fiscal year.
Yes, but there aren't
Not
double
signed, so you
signatures.
can't
Oh, I
approve
see,
it.
I see, gotcha.
So we can't vote on it.
Yeah.
Okay, that brings us to announcements under 14. The only announcement I had was that the Basic Ingredients Bakery and Gift Shop is kind of sponsoring a race for September 1st called Run Your Buns Off, which has to do with a scholarship fund. And I just wanted to give it the publicity that I believe it is due for those who are willing to participate to benefit the Jacob Earl Messerschmidt Memorial Scholarship Fund on Saturday, September 1st. At 9 a.m., runners and walkers will leave from Basic Ingredients Bakery on Route 3A in Bristol to run their buns off. And then I guess at the end of the event, you can put the bun back on by getting a free one from Basic Ingredients. I think that's what they intend.
Well, if you're announcing that, I'd like to add that this Saturday is our annual fundraiser in Bridgewater at the bottom of Hammond Hill Road for the Marcus Moulton Memorial Scholarship. And there'll be an antique cars show, assuming it doesn't rain, 3 or 4 bands, fun houses for the kids, food.
And that's Saturday?
Saturday, yep.
Not gonna rain.
I don't know. I know car people won't come if it does, and it's supposed to be a big show this year.
Of course not. They don't want those things
Just
here.
as a way of announcement, the Bristol Rotary held their penny sale on Thursday evening, August 9th, and we raised about $8,000, which $6,000 will go towards the Rotary Scholarship, and then they also support things such as the Mayhew program for boys, the Circle program for girls, the TTCC, etc. And Molly Jalla, who is our new associate principal in Bristol and Bridgewater, came to the event and helped to sell tickets and set up, and we were just really happy to have him be able to be introduced to a lot of people in the community. So it was a very successful evening, and also we'll hope that you're going to invite board members to several very exciting events in the next week. On Monday morning at 7:30, you have this on your pink sheet. Monday morning at 7:30, there will be a welcome to new staff at the SAU office. Breakfast at 7:30. If you'd like to come and say hello specifically to them, it's some food for you. On Tuesday evening and Wednesday evening, there will be ice cream socials at Bridgewater Hebron School. I gotta get, which one did I put which? I think BHVS is Tuesday, the 21st, and
Right.
BES is Wednesday, the 22nd. And that's to meet 5 to 6, and that is to meet the 2 new principals at both schools.
Well, Danbury's must be the 23rd then, because I think that the Bristol one is a day from ours, either the day before.
Danbury does a welcome back, and both in as well as New Hampton. So I didn't have those. This was sort of the meet the new principals thing, and I knew that you all knew Anne. So and she was
Well,
out the day I did this. So
Yeah, we have an ice cream social, and the teachers that I spoke of in the other session said that it was one day different from the Bristol ice cream
okay.
social.
And then on the big thing you need to really remember is Wednesday the 22nd, you have volunteered to do a staff appreciation cookout. I'm looking at you, Paul.
Dan, what time was
If you guys want to show up around 10:30.
We're serving at 11.
Serving at 11?
Mhm.
Well, if you guys show up at 10, we'll have everything, prepped
Dan,
and...
you want not earlier or?
No, we'll just be getting stuff ready and prepped and warmed up. If you guys show up at 10, we should be in good shape.
So 10 o'clock?
And Vincent Paul will be welcoming our staff at 8:15, right?
Yes, I will.
Okay. And so we'll have a great morning, and feel free to come early. You could come as early as 8:15 and listen to Vincent's welcome and my welcome. And we have a great video about supporting our public schools. That was done by a businessman, and so we'll have an interesting morning, and I'll probably do my usual welcome back inspirational speech, and we'll have a good morning to kick off before our cookout. So those are important dates for you to remember. Students start on the 27th. Bus schedules have already been sent to the newspapers and are published on our website. So we just want to thank the first student personnel for getting that done in a timely fashion. And then what did you want to do for planning and dialogue?
Oh, hold on, one other announcement. The football field crew is putting together an event for homecoming on the 25th.
September.
No, August.
Oh,
That's a
home days.
scrimmage.
Yeah,
August 25th is a scrimmage.
That's not, yeah, that's not homecoming, it's Old Home Days for first school.
oh, right, that's what it is, Old
Yeah.
Home Day.
Because our homecoming.
Scrimmage, kind of the first official activity on the field. If you want to participate in that or get people to come up and see it, it's kind of a show it off kind of a thing. So I mentioned that for everyone's edification to try and get up there and see the new asset put together by Friends of Newfound Football. Anyone have any other announcements? Busy month. We were planning on doing a planning and dialogue meeting for the 27th, and the next regularly scheduled board meeting would be September 10th. However, we are also scheduled to have a strategy session at the conclusion of this meeting this evening regarding the strategy or the negotiations for the teacher contract. So, depending on what your pleasure is and what your desire is for planning and dialogue, we may or may not have a planning and dialogue session for August.
That would make me happy. That's my first day of school. It's the kids' first day of school.
Okay.
My daughter's getting new casts on in the afternoon.
But
Well,
before
that'll
we,
make Ruby happy.
before we make that decision, did you have some input regarding that?
My only concern is if I need to hire any staff to start the school year, if other people come and go, or paras, or people that I typically bring to the board, or a last-minute teacher, or whatever.
And you'd have to wait 4 weeks.
I need to start school on August 27 with students. I mean, so I would like the board to authorize me to just notify the chair and vice chair in the event of an emergency
We
election.
already did that, didn't we?
No.
I think we would. I think we would have to, because we couldn't approve them till after they started anyway. Do you know what I mean?
Right, because the 27th is after their
Yeah,
first. I could have
after
them
they've
sub
already
for a
started.
day, I guess, but I don't anticipate. I think we are pretty well hired at this point. But
Yeah, I was going to say, at this point,
well, I thought that until I got a couple resignations this week, and this thing's happened. So I just
Yeah.
want a contingency plan so that I can fully staff the schools if necessary. So that's my only concern about not having a meeting, which is fine with me not to have a meeting.
you know, that circumstance, I think we can kind of pretend it's a manifest and do it after the fact. We've been doing that for years. So,
Do you need a motion,
well,
or are we
No, I
just
just
really-
wanted to just throw that out
she's
there,
just being upfront with us on
Okay.
some possibilities.
as I am with everything.
Right. So, I don't have any planned topics for P&D, but I do want to suggest that that day may be of interest to us. So, does anyone else have any thoughts on that? Okay. I'm working on the, actually I have been working on both the September and October agendas for the school board on an ongoing basis, and soon I'll be starting in on November's agenda, which is a little bit weird because we're 2 or 3 months away, but it's kind of how you have to do things to stay ahead of this effort. There are certain things that have to happen every month, and we want to be sure that we address that stuff, so you need to think ahead like that. So the zero-based budgeting is going to be done in September. The October, now that we've authorized Drummond Woodson to go forward, October 1st, the preliminary report, so we'll probably be seeing something at the October board meeting. I don't remember the exact date. maybe we can get them to come up with the report prior to the meeting. Dan?
You may want to contemplate pushing that off a month. As important this issue is, I think you should anticipate the budget committee requesting that your budget is complete by November 1. Because last year the last 2 years it's been December 1, and their talk at their previous meeting was wanting it sooner. So if they want their budget from you by November 1, you may want to schedule some time in September and October talking about your proposed budget for FY14.
Well, I think we need those results to talk about that budget. And in September, Bridgewater Hebron's coming. Both of those.
Oh, yes.
Both of those can have a big impact on that budget.
The other thing that you should be aware of is there's an effort afoot in Bridgewater to consider making the school a K-8 school. And they've asked for time on the agenda in September to present that possibility. Well, Dan.
I would just remind you that the district holds a lease on that building for the next 8 years in responding to their thoughts and how much time really should be.
Okay.
They're not asking for separation, just a new configuration.
So these are all the kinds of things that are going to come up, not the least of which is what do we do with other schools, et cetera.
Can I ask a clarifying question? Because I just became aware of this conversation that you're having with them through reading your article last Thursday. And one of the questions I have was, would this configuration result in us having to redistrict the Alexandria students back out of Bridgewater Hebron to free up enough space for them to have their K-8?
Yes.
So I think that's really important for me to know in advance, because then I can have numbers prepared about, which kids live where and what the impact would be on the other schools. So thank you for that, and I will begin. If you have any other information that...
We haven't done any research into their proposal, except that I accompanied Mr. Murphy to Chichester to see how they do things. I mean, I'd looked at several with the warrant articles, both K-6 and K-8, but I had only looked at schools that had similar tax valuations to Danbury, and similar populations, etc. So I was looking for towns that were very similar.
I was just going to say, I wonder if they realize that that would affect teacher certifications and requirements, because most teachers, a lot of teachers are K-6, so the teachers they have may not be.
All of that has to come up at our meeting.
Yeah, these are
You know,
things that need to be
like,
discussed.
there are
Well, I
going to
think
be a
that's
million
good for us,
questions.
because we could come, if, and I would really appreciate if you had a list of these types of questions, because then we could come with real numbers. We could come and say, these many students
Well,
live in Alexandria, and
We won't be the ones generating the questions.
Right.
Right, we're expecting.
I just would like to be prepared for, like I said, I know when I met Mr. Murphy when I first came to the district, which is like 7 years ago, he had said that he had built a school with capacity to do a K-8, and at some point would like to look at that. And I know we've talked about that in several of our educational facilities planning meetings. So that was my clarification. I know when they built the school, originally it was for Bridgewater and Hebron, but they allowed the Groton students to come to that school. So if I just knew the students, then I could give exact numbers.
Yes.
And I'm sure they have those numbers,
That-
but we would have to know how to absorb those numbers into other
That would
schools.
still be his plan,
Yeah.
their plan. I don't know them all. That's still their
Bridgewater,
plan to
Hebron, and
accompany,
Groton.
yes, and not to take students from other towns.
Okay, so if
Right.
we took Alexandria, that helps me, because then I can look and say,
And to send out any district
Okay.
stuff
Well-
that's situated in their building.
Well, yeah, but hold on, without getting into it, it's on the agenda for September 10th, but I would be reticent to say that this is a Bridgewater, Hebron, Groton suggestion at this point.
right,
Right.
right.
I believe it's just coming from Bridgewater. So it is not a Bridgewater Village District effort, to my knowledge.
Which would have to get approved by the village
I
district.
believe the village district would have to vote on it, and then there's
Right.
consideration
Right.
of all sorts.
And this is the same district that was yelling and screaming because you were gonna put fifth graders in.
Separate part of the issue, but
Oh, you want to keep them there.
Isn't it isn't?
I just, appreciate the heads up so that we can have some stats ready.
Just to
and-
let you know, it's
and-
Yeah.
on the
and-
agenda
yeah.
in September, so that brings
I
us
think
back
I'm
full
making
circle to
questions
where
up
we are.
Yep.
myself,
at
like,
this
that I would
point.
need answered.
What would I do, where would I put Alexandria?
Doesn't look like we're gonna have a P and D meeting in August. Okay, but I reserve the right to call it if something comes up between now and then, so keep that in mind for August 27th. We're now at item 17, which is concluding business for the posted meeting time at 9:37 PM. Is there a motion to do so?
So moved.
Motion to adjourn by Paul Reinhardt. Seconded by Don Franklin. It's not debatable. All in favor say aye.
Aye.
Voted 6-0-0. With one